Today, I will share the 7 most effective ways to destroy your credit in just 30 days. I know that in the past, I've typically created videos on how to build credit or how to build a stronger credit. But today, I wanted to take a bit of a different approach and share the ways that you can absolutely destroy your credit in just a matter of 30 days. And hopefully with that, you will learn to identify what you're doing wrong and hopefully correct that. So let's get started. So one of the ways to absolutely destroy your credit is by not paying your credit cards on or before the due date. Credit cards are always paid on or before the due date, not after. I mean, the name in itself says it. Payment is due on this date, which is why it's called the due date. If you make payments after the due date, you risk having your payment be registered as late. And you definitely don't want that. You see, the way lenders look at your credit is that they pay attention to your timely payments. And they want to know that if they lend you money, that they are going to get their payments back guaranteed on the date that they request. And if you can manage to pay it back before, that's even better. So remember, never pay late. Always pay on or before the due date. And that payment has to be made religiously every single month without any exceptions. And if you happen to miss a month, there you go. You're risking destroying your credit. So to access your credit card payment due date, all you have to do is either go to your credit card statements or simply log on to your app. And once you're in the screen, you will go for the section that says payment due date, just like you see in the sample on the screen. Another way to risk destroying your credit is by not understanding the differences between the due date and the closing date, or as some will call it, the statement closing date. So as you know, the due date is the day in where payment is due, right? So you need to make payments on this day. And the closing date is the date the banks use to include the last transactions of the month, meaning the last period, whatever that might be. This is very important because if you don't understand the differences between those two dates, you can risk either making a payment late or just simply risk overspending above your credit limit or above what your budget allows you to spend. This might seem very small, but every little thing eventually will add and lead you to the destruction of your credit. Because if you pay late, that means that you're not a trustworthy person, and therefore lenders might either not want to deal with you or just simply charge you more interest. And if you don't get a hold of your budget, you eventually risk becoming a slave to your credit card debt. So to help you locate the closing date, let's go back to the original screenshot. So you have the due date at the very top, but if you scroll down on the screen, you will see that there is a closing date. So in my case, you will notice that the due date is on the 27th of the month and the closing date is on a different date, which is the 2nd of the month. Depending on how you have your credit card set up or how your lender has everything set up, your due date and your closing date might be the same, but in some other cases, it might be different like it is in my case. What I decided to do is to have the due date of all my credit cards on the 27th because that helps me manage the payments better. I could sit down in one day and just process all the payments of all my credit cards. So that way I don't have to worry about whether I skip a credit card or that if I forgot to make a payment or not, everything is done in one single day. And I keep that separate for the closing day because it's just simply a matter of preference. It just helps me manage my budget better. Another way to destroy your credit is by not understanding that everything is connected. Did you know that if you're late on your rent payment, you might risk destroying your credit history? The same thing goes for medical bills. If you don't pay your medical bills on time, these eventually get sent over to collection. And once it hit collection, it will be very difficult, although not impossible, but it will be very difficult for you to fix your credit from that point on. And back to the subject of rent, yes, your rental payment gets now reported to the credit bureaus. This typically happens in properties where the property managers happen to be institutional investors or institutional companies, meaning big companies that manage properties by the bulk. So what they do, and to help keep their tenants in check, is that they offer a service that kind of works two ways. They help them report their timely rent payment, and therefore it will help them build their credit history. But it can also work in the opposite way. If they don't pay, their credit could risk being destroyed. You typically won't see this in smaller mom and pops residencies, but if you do, hey, that's great because it's one way for you to build credit and also one way to keep you in check. So make sure you pay attention to that. In the event that you are living in a residence and where you don't get to receive that quote unquote perk, because it will depend on which way it goes, if you happen to look for a way to report your rent so that you can work on building your credit, you can check out a service like Rental Karma. And I actually talk about the service in this video right here, so I invite you to check it out after you're done with this one. In that video, I share everything that Rental Karma has to offer, and I also do a walkthrough on how you can actually sign up for their services. So make sure you check it out after you're done with this episode. Another way you can certainly destroy your credit is by buying bad debt. What do I mean by that? Well, it's any debt that doesn't pay for itself. So let's say, for example, if you want to use your credit card to buy something that you cannot afford, let's say designer shoes or a couple of nice drinks on a weekend that you were looking to de-stress because, you know, you deserve better. And that's all right if you have the capital. But if you don't have the money, try not to go on a spending spree, because ultimately you will become a slave of that debt. Yes, it might seem simple now because perhaps you have a stable job, a stable income that's helping you pay for those expenses. But what do you think can happen if you were to lose your job, or if your company happens to go bankrupt and they cannot afford your services anymore? By then, you have already accumulated a certain amount of debt, which will require a certain amount of payment. And if you don't have enough saved, you will eventually see how your savings get eaten up by that credit card debt. And the worst part is that as you let that debt go unpaid longer and longer, that debt will grow only bigger and bigger, because at the end of the month, whatever interest gets accumulated, it's going to get added back to the debt. And that's how the snowball effect is created, ultimately destroying your credit. Now, if you were to apply the reverse of it, meaning you need to use your credit card, but instead of buying bad debt, you ended up buying good debt. And what do I mean by good debt? Debt that can pay for itself. So using your credit to buy real estate, or using your credit to invest in any type of asset. For example, your education. Remember that money comes and goes. You can destroy it, you can earn it again. But one thing that no one will ever take away from you is your education. The more you educate yourself, the more you can bounce back up with the knowledge and the skills that you managed to accumulate over the year, thanks to your investment and that good debt. Another guaranteed way to destroy your credit within 30 days is by not understanding the concept of credit. Sounds silly, but it's true. So the most basic definition of credit is receiving borrowed money and then agreeing to pay that money back plus interest over a predetermined period of time. And that payment has to be timely every single time. That means that credit goes beyond a simple credit card. Credit can be a mortgage, it could be a car loan, it could be a student loan, it could be any loan that you take for your business in order to buy inventory and help that business expand. So that's to say that if you miss any of the payments, call it your credit card, call it your mortgage, you risk destroying your credit. And therefore, you risk your chances of growing financially in the future, whether it's through buying your home or a second home or investing in real estate or whatever is it that you need financial capital to invest that money on. Another way to destroy your credit is by demonizing your credit. Demonizing your credit? Yes. You see, I often hear people say, credit cards are bad, credit cards are no good, credit cards do this to your life, and credit cards do this to your life. But if you come to think about it, let's just, calm down and take a step back. Can credit cards really walk themselves to the store or walk themselves to your computer or any online platform and charge something in your credit card? Not really. It is you. You are ultimately the only person that has the power to take that credit card and charge it. So that means that credit cards are not necessarily bad. What's bad? It's your behavior. With that, I'm not saying that you are the bad person, but let's face it, that behavior is not helping you. You're charging your credit cards with things that are not adding you any value. And I know this is more like a mentality change of behavior kind of thing, but let's face it, you're watching this channel in order to improve your finances, or at least try to improve your finances. So the first step you need to do is to recognize what is it that you're doing wrong and just simply replace those behaviors that are not helping you with some behaviors that in fact do help your growth. And blaming the credit cards and demonizing credit cards are definitely not the way to go, because it all starts with you. Another way to destroy your credit is by stopping your payments completely. You see, one thing is to pay late, which is not good for your credit, but not paying your credit obligations at all, that's a big no-no, because not only you will ruin your credit, you will also be labeled as delinquent. What a horrible label to have. And what does being delinquent mean? It simply means that you're not making your payments at all. And there are 3 categories of being delinquent: 30 days late, 60 days late, and 90 days late. The more days you go by without paying your debt, the worse it gets. And since you made it this far, I have a bonus for you. If you want to absolutely destroy your credit, you should act as someone co-signer. And that someone needs to be someone irresponsible. Here's the story, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to the story. I had a friend that many years ago wanted to help her niece. And his niece was actually going to college, but she didn't have the credit to apply for a private student loan. So my friend, as the nice uncle, went ahead and decided to help the niece and co-sign on that loan. And eventually she graduated, and I guess the economy was bad. She didn't find a job. Whatever the reason was, she never made a single payment on that student loan. And my friend saw his credit go down from 800, 760, 750, on and on, all the way until 6 months had gone by, and he couldn't really make sense as to what exactly is it that was causing his credit to drop, until he got a call from collection saying, hey, you haven't made any single payment on this student loan. So surprise, surprise, he tried to reach out to the niece. She decided not to pay because she doesn't have a job. She's not going to make any payment. And my friend could not get out of it because he decided to co-sign. With this, I'm not saying that you shouldn't act as a co-signer for anyone. But if you're going to do that, just make sure that you're doing it for someone who is worth it, someone who you know is responsible, because at the end of the day, you're going to get stuck with that debt. Like my friend, he, in the end, had to pay for that loan, even though that student loan was not his whatsoever. He never got a college degree or anything like that, but he was responsible for paying it. Otherwise, he was going to completely destroy his credit more than it already was. And there was nothing he could do. He involved attorneys and experts. If you happen to have gone through something like that and you had a solution or you worked something out, make sure you share your tips down in the comment section below to help everyone who's tuning in. But in my friend's case, there was no such thing as a happy ending. But that's not what you're all about, right? That's why you're watching this episode. So if you happen to be in the market looking for ways to better improve your credit because you want to absolutely build a credit that is as strong as stainless steel, you should definitely check out our credit course. For more information, all you got to do is to go down in the description box below or simply check the comment section. I'll see you in the course. Take care. Bye-bye.